Okay, now this next critique is by artist Dana. Thank you for sending it in for me. The reference is from Gail Klett, artist reference photos on Facebook. It's pastel and 11 by 14 inches, so this is the reference photo, of course. So let's take a look at the artwork, which is really, I love the stylized look to it. There's not a great deal of detail in there, but all the major things you need to see and know are in place. Okay, so we've got great action in there. We've got this dust being kicked up as well. I really like that. Let's go back to the reference photo so you can see all that dust, action, movement that we've got in there. So it's a really lovely scene, and it would be so easy to overcomplicate it by putting in all the backgrounds and the metal work and the other cowboys in there as well, which are not really needed to tell the story, the main story. So Dana has done a fantastic job there picking out just the main elements, and I love the colour as well. I don't know whether that's just the colour of the paper because she didn't supply me with the paper colour, but I assume that's brown pastel matte, probably. Okay, so what am I thinking on here? When you're doing away with details, then you need to be especially careful with your tonal values. Okay, you know I talk a lot about tonal values. They're so important. But even more so when you don't have the details, because a lot of the time if you've got something really detailed, the viewer doesn't notice as much about the tonal value. And remember, as I've said in other videos, the tonal value is what gives you the shape and the form. And I've showed you in other videos how I do that with Photoshop, you know, just to burn areas a bit darker or lighten areas as well. So I've done it with this, so I'll just skip to that instead on this occasion. Or in fact, let's look at the reference first. Let me flick back to that and see if you can see areas in the drawing that you personally think may need to be a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, and things like that. Okay, so let's look back at the drawing. Is there areas you think needed to be perhaps a bit darker? Look at the shadows in particular, because that's what's helping with setting the scene for the bright sunlight. When you've got bright sunlight that's pretty much directly overhead, as you can see by the shadows on the floor, it's going to cast deep shadows, dark shadows in places. Okay, so I've done it now on the drawing. I've adjusted the drawing. Let me show you how I've adjusted it. So do you see how it's got more three-dimensional form? Now obviously Dana would have been able to have done a much better job than my very basic Photoshop skills. But look at the white shirt of the guy on the left. If we go back to the reference, you can see because that light is directly above, his hunched forward body, the cowboy hat as well, so all casting shadows down on parts of the shirt but not on the arm, just like that. Okay, so once again this is only roughly done. Also on his leg, you see Dana's got it very bright there. You can do that, you can get away with that, that's not really a problem, but I think it looks a bit better darkened, and especially this guy's face on the right and the shadows that his cowboy hat is casting on his shirt. Let's go back to the drawing. So I like the detail on the face, but if it could have been done a little bit darker, I've lost the detail in there on Photoshop, but Dana could have put the detail in, just made it a bit darker. And the same with his shirt, the leg, and a couple of areas on the horses as well. See the horse down here on the foreleg, on the neck. If we look at the reference again, you can see it's quite deeply in shadow, so you need to make sure that those shadows match up. And especially if you look over here on the horse, you can see on the, I don't even know what that part is called, around the chest, but half of that needs to be in shadow rather than it all being pretty much the same kind of tonal value there. Okay, so this is only a quick critique. It's a wonderful drawing. I really like it a lot, and just a couple of areas of extra shadow, I think, enhances it, gives more of a three-dimensional feel and appearance to it. So Donna, thank you very much for sending that one in. Hope that has helped you in some way. Okay, the next critique, this is a green emerald toucanette apparently, and the drawing is by Ali, and the reference photo is from NE Birds on Instagram, so I was used with permission. Ali did this on dark green pastel mat, so let's take a look at the drawing. Lovely vibrant drawing. Ali wanted to use vibrant colours for a change as well. Lots of wildlife, can be quite subdued colours. Okay, so that's really a nice thing to do if you're doing butterflies or flowers or birds. You can, you know, get some of the other supplies out for a change. So let's take a look at the reference again, because I like you guys to think about differences, perhaps things you would do different, things you would advise as well, so you're all learning. Okay, so here's something that is like a pet peeve of mine that I generally pick up on and mention, and it's in the reference photo as well. The branch ending up directly in the corner of the square. Okay, so I don't like that. It causes tension with the viewer's eye. It would have been better if it cropped in a bit or the branch was going at the top a bit, but absolutely not directly in the corner. Okay, so if you see that in reference photos or you crop it yourself, always look for these things cropping up. All right, in the corners, could be any of the corners. You don't want that happening. One thing I would say, I do love the vibrant colours, the feather markings, the beak, the eye, the branch with the moss on is done beautifully. All of that, really love it. So what would I think about this? What could be done? Okay, so let me duplicate the layer. Now, one thing I would say, let me have a think first how I'm going to do this. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. Everything is vibrant. Okay, in the reference photo we're seeing that the background is much more muted. That allows the colours of the bird to really kind of shine through and look more vibrant. It also stops the branch kind of disappearing into the background. With Ali's drawing, everything is competing for our attention, and it's the same type of real vibrancy all around the drawing. The background is very rich, the bird's very rich coloured, and the moss on the branches very bright as well. So here all I did was masked off the bird just to show you and subdued the background, so I took a lot of the vibrancy out of it, and you can see now how, just like in the reference photo, the bird is really centre of interest now, standing out. There's nothing competing with it. It gives us more three dimensions. You don't have to take it, you know, this far back from vibrancy, but you can see how effective that is. Or you could take it even more, you know, play with the ideas yourself. The other thing I would say is that I'm seeing only barely, but it's there. Let me show you. When you blend the edges, be careful you're not blending following the shape of the subject. So I can see blend marks there. I can see blend marks under the beak, bit around here as well. So it's kind of like marks. You can't see it as much with the background lighter, but you see marks that are there following the shape. Okay, so when you blend, you'll see in my videos I blend just slightly over where the subject's going to be. Okay, so blend over it, and then you can put the beak on top and you won't get these lines. Now it's only barely there, but I look for things like this so I see it, and some artworks you see it very pronounced and it gets a halo effect. Okay, so you don't want a halo effect on there. The other thing I would say is, let's see if we can do this. You know what I'm like about shape and form being created by the tonal values. So okay, let me just look at the midtones and see if this shows up. Very good. No. Hang on, I need to work on this level, that's why. So if we look at our drawing, or Ali's drawing, and the reference photo, we can see that there should have been a bit more shadow here, and then the bird is casting a shadow on itself here, on this leg as well, the chest area, under the neck a bit more perhaps. Okay, so it's getting more shadow on there. Should be a bit of shadow in places as well on the branch, especially the underside, yeah, the underside of the branch. So you can have more moss there if you want, but you should still have shadows in there. Okay, like that. It doesn't take much, doesn't need to be a lot. And then perhaps a little bit more brightness on the beak itself, just to pop that from the background. And perhaps it would be a little bit on the top of the head also. Okay, but let's see if that made a difference. Let me take it off that one, put it there instead. So that's the background and more shadowing on the bird as well. I think you'll agree it's more of a three-dimensional look in it. So it's very minor adjustments, but they can make a real big difference. So think about bringing your subject out from the background. Doesn't have to be dramatic, but by subduing the background you do get that. And then think about, have you got all of the tonal shadows and the highlights in the right places on the subject, just to make that look more three-dimensional as well. So thanks both of you for sending in your artwork. Hope you've all enjoyed another episode of the Artwork Critique, and I'll see you all again on the next video.